Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Supermarketers Podcast. I'm your host, Gen Furukawa, and today we are in for a treat because we have Lashay Lewis, who's the founder of BOFU.ai. You are doing a ton with AI in terms of the product, the education, the way that you're actually using this to not only appear in LLMs, but actually focus on the conversion part, which is actually most important. Lashay, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be here, and hopefully I can give some value to the people today.
For sure. I would love to make this actionable and have a little bit of the over the shoulder screen share of what you're doing with BOFU and the frameworks that you use, how you're identifying these opportunities. But first, maybe just from your perspective, if you could give a quick background on what you are, what you do, and how you arrived at this point now.
Okay, right now, as you said, I am running BOFU.ai, which is a content marketing consultancy that focuses on B2B SaaS, more specifically, bottom of funnel content and getting attributable pipeline through that bottom of funnel content. 2023, October, I was like, I have an idea. I think I want to come out with a product. Mind you, the consultancy was growing really well at the time, and I got scared. I was like, I don't want to hire people. I'm scared to do that. What if I just used AI to help me do this? So the pivot went to straight up consultancy. I had my whole thing in Notion, everything put together. Even in Notion, it was productized. And then moving over to product world a little bit, or I tried to. I had this whole thing built in Coda, and it was a couple problems with that. Number one, it muddied my positioning. People didn't really know. So what do you do? And okay, so you're a software, but you're charging advising prices for that, which was that could be a whole nother conversation between are you a software or are you a service that's powered by a software? What are you? And if you mix that positioning up, it could mess you up a little bit. So I was struggling through 2024 quite a bit, trying to nail that positioning. At the top of 2025, I was like, you know what? This is a little crass, but honestly, I was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna pull back a little bit and figure this out. I'm like, I'm gonna start an AI-led consultancy and I'm gonna let people know I'm using AI. The domain is bofu.ai. So I was like, all right, see if I can figure this out. And then from there, it just started picking up a little bit where people were like, oh, you do use AI? Like, how do you use it? All right. And then people were getting comfortable with the idea of AI being ingrained into the workflow and the processes. And then from there, it just started like picking up. And I'm like, all right, this is good. This is good. And then, because I had put my software dreams on hold in like September of 24. So I had worked on it from October of 23 to like August of 24, wasn't working, let it go. Bought it back in July of 25. It started picking up. I think the first day we opened that up, we got maybe like 20 demos booked in 2 days. So we were on calls for a long time those 2 days. But it was a real need for people. And the way I describe it was I was using my service market fit to find my product market fit.
It's great. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Little bit of a condensed version of I'm trying to strip it down a little bit, but that's been the ride over the past 3 years or so with trying to figure out this whole content and AI thing and like where can we meet in the middle? Like how can we not just blast a bunch of shit on the internet? And also like how do we produce quick enough for things to matter and for teams not to feel like their executive leadership is breathing down their neck because oh, just get AI to do it. And AI can do it and you should be able to do triple the amount of output now. But
For
it's not that
sure.
easy.
Yeah, I think you touch on a good point because that's kind of like the conundrum of AI. You can scale content, but after a while, it's kind of like melds into this slop, or you just take more targeted shots on goal, which is your approach.
Yes.
I've seen that you're saying 6 to 9 really thoughtful pieces, maybe with the help of AI, would outdo in terms of conversion or impact on revenue 50 top of funnel posts, informational posts. So I'm
Hmm.
wondering if you could help walk through what that framework is. Maybe if you have something on your screen that you could share in terms of like those back to the template days, before what Elementor helped you build into. How are you actually putting together a bottom of funnel page or the content that is likely to increase the visibility in LLMs and likely to get cited or change the buyer's perception in the LLM so that when they arrive on the site, it's more likely to convert?
It's a great question. So I'm going to share my screen here, walk through this. I'm going to take you through the path
Awesome. Yeah.
that I did with this. So let me come here and then share this whole window with you. I'm going to share our window here. Okay. All right. So essentially, and just to make sure you can see this, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Okay, great. So when I started on LinkedIn, I started following Fletch, right? Anthony Pieri and Rob Kaminsky. And I noticed how they, so first of all, I had never really had any contact with a product marketer. As a content marketer, I had not had that. And I was like, this is so intriguing to me because a lot of the things that they're talking about is the same type of way content should be written. They just do it for home pages, but that language translates to more than just a home page. And so I'm like, all right, conceptually, right? When we think about the funnel, first of all, the funnel is proverbial. It doesn't really exist. But for the sake of example, when we think about the funnel, it's like when we think about bottom of funnel, it's more high intent. They say maybe like at any point in time, 5% of your audience is purchasing something and the other 95% is not in market. So I'm like, how do we capture this 5% and really talk about the things they want to know? And it's by really just extracting a few things that they care about. So somebody at the bottom of the funnel is more high intent. They care about what their pain points are. That's the reason they're searching in the first place because they're dealing with a pain. The features of the product, because those features of the product will solve their pain directly. The benefit that they get from having that pain solved. And then the capability of the product, because the capability is the thing that powers the feature. Like you say you can do this thing, prove it to me. Show me how it works. Let me see the inside. Let's talk about that. And so once I seen this, I was like, it was almost like a light bulb clicked for me. I'm like, oh, okay, this is how it works. And I started decoding my own work that I did previously. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is nothing but that, but in just longer form. So what I would do is I would reverse engineer my own articles and break them down by these elements. And after I would do that, I'd be like, okay, so pain points are leading, features come in here, capabilities come in there. It's almost like Legos, like how you stack them. So you think about a Lego set. Mind you, I'm not talking about like the Star Wars ship Lego sets where you actually have to be very meticulous about how you put it together. But you have four of the same Legos, same size, different colors. You could stack them any way and they're going to fit. Um, it's very similar with bottom of funnel content, right? So as I started decoding this a little bit, I'm like, okay, pain should lead because when somebody is looking, if they're at the intent stage, you need to connect with them immediately. And I see this mistake so much where it's like people will form their bottom of funnel articles in a top of funnel way where it's like you're giving me the history of the thing, you're telling me what is the thing. Like I don't need to know all that. I just need to know, are you the right person to solve my pain points? First of all, do you even know what pain points I'm having? So I find that when you lead with pain points, it hooks the reader, which you only have a couple seconds to do. And I get the thing, side note, I get the thing like people ask me all the time, people skim through articles. Like, do they even read that? Take the time. And just going by what I've seen with my clients, like I've seen read times as long as 8 minutes on these bottom of funnel articles. And it makes sense because typically somebody looking for a solution has been tasked by somebody else in their company to find a solution to X problem. So now I got to do my due diligence. I got to read, I got to type things into AI, I got to put a short list together. So having these four components, I'm like, okay, I'm on to something. Then for the longer piece of this, I'm like, I decoded my own work and I'm like, all right, how is this set up? And I find that when I'm doing this, like I'm leading in with pains this way. Uh, and the importance of this is not just so you hook the reader. Yes, you want to do that. This is the middle ground between how do we write content that ranks in Google and AI search, but also how do we write content that converts a reader? We have to do both. It's not one or the other. So I pulled the pain points here. These pain points came directly from their team. So I know they're accurate. And I'll tell you how this connects to AI search in a second. But as I'm going down, I'm like, all right, I have a call to action, I have the pain points leading, little product overview here, features and capabilities, right? Here's the feature that I want to talk about. Here's the capability, like just essentially proof that you can do the feature you just said you can do. It's just proof. And then I just keep going, boom, one after another. And then from here, I think one thing that people tend to miss is although I have pain points included in my intro, each one of these pain points is directly connected to one of these features. And it's the psychology behind that. It's like somebody comes to the article, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm having trouble. And I'm using Teal for this example. Yeah, I'm having trouble with my resume. Yeah, like I have a ton of resumes and I'm having like trouble managing them. Okay, this makes sense. Immediately you're going to hook them. But that's not enough. Now you got to show them how you solve said problem. And you do that by connecting the features and the capabilities of the product to the pain points that your audience is dealing with. How do we know what pain points they're dealing with? That's what we have sales call transcripts for. And I tell this to companies all the time. My God, if you are not recording your sales calls, please start recording your sales calls. It's like a treasure trove of information in there that you will not pick up on your own. A lot of times, their language is not your language. Positioning is, I think of positioning as how a company feels about itself internally, how it describes itself internally versus how the market talks about it externally. When you meet those two things, when those two things are married, that's when you have positioning. So it's like just because you use a certain verbiage or language doesn't mean your audience does. And putting their language in these style articles is so important. And again, not just for conversions, but it's also super important for AI search, right? AI search is it'll be an understatement to say it's changing the game. And traditionally, how we would think about SEO, where you would think about, okay, how do I rank an article in Google? I include the keyword in the H1 and I include keywords all throughout the content, sprinkle them around a little bit. Some people tend, like in the day, they would call it like keyword stuffing. They just put a ton of keywords and Google know, hey, I'm talking about this thing. Our search is way smarter than that. AI search understands context, meaning it's less about the keywords that you put in there and more about the context of what you are talking about. So when I think about those elements that I just told you about, and I think about what makes up a contextual search, right? So again, Google search, very keyword based. AI search, very context based, very context heavy, longer queries. So, for example, if somebody was looking for a resume builder in Google, they probably type in best resume builder. If somebody was looking for a resume builder and they are typing to AI search, they'd probably say something along the lines of, I'm looking for a job and I need a resume builder. I'm struggling to show the impact of my work and managing my multiple resumes. I need a tool that lets me edit and manage in one place. Can you recommend a resume builder that can help me with this? And so that search string is very long and contextual. It's a couple things we can decode out of here. So somebody that says, I'm looking for a job, there's your persona. It's a job seeker. And if we take a look at this article over here, literally the first words in the article is the persona, job seekers. And then we come back and we say, and I need a resume builder. A resume builder is the category that you sit in. That's all in here. I want to see if I can show you specifically where that is. Yeah, here, resume builder. So it's like you don't have to stuff these things in. You just smartly add them where they make sense. And then reading on with the search, I need a tool that lets me edit and manage in one place. That's the capability. And I guess let me rewind back quickly to the pain point. I'm struggling to show the impact of my work and managing my multiple resumes. That's the pain point. Where do we have that at? Right here in the introduction. Pain point there. And then
Yeah.
moving to the capability. I need a tool that lets me edit and manage in one place. So back to the other slide I showed you, that's in here. Like these, the capabilities are here. So it's like when somebody goes to AI search to type these things in, everything is smartly connected. And then AI search can make the association and say, okay, they're having these pain points. Okay, Teal mentions these pain points specifically. Let me surface them.
That's really interesting because I just made the connection, that there is kind of like the best practice of what a prompt should be. So you are giving
Yeah.
it a role. So you are a recruiter at a B2B SaaS company. Then you're giving it a task. Then you're giving it the details and context. Then you're giving it like what the expected output is. And you're basically reverse engineering that with your elements of contextual search and then reflecting it on the page that of the on-page context. So I think that's beautifully done. My question to you is on the full landing page, I saw that there were six Resi alternatives to make. The first one, I think you're doing it for Teal, right? So
Yes.
that's kind of always been a question I've had for these bottom of funnel comparison or alternative to pages is
Hmm.
you got to include your competitors so that it seems like an objective analysis, but you don't want to toot their horn too much, or you want to, of course, shift it in your favor so that Teal is definitely the option that you choose. How are you addressing that in this in terms of like the 5 other products that you're including on this page? Is it as
Yeah.
detailed as Teal?
Great question. So let me do this. I'll just like type this in so we can see the full live articles. I tell people because there are some people that are like, the top 10 solutions for X, Y, and Z. I'm like, it's a lot. And you don't want people to get decision fatigue. Uh, and so I like to keep it at 5 in terms of how many products we're comparing to one another. When it comes to the other solutions, you could see this is relatively short, and especially in compared to what we have. So I tell people a couple things with this. Number one, we don't have access to these companies' internal documentation. If we did, maybe we could write a full blown, here's this feature, it connects to this thing, so on and so forth. But we don't have access to that. The only thing we have access to is what's publicly available, maybe what AI is able to pull. On the flip side, that's also why I tell people it's extraordinarily important what you have external facing, because let's say your competitor is doing a alternative piece or a best of piece and they're pulling information about you into their article. If you don't have correct public facing information, they're pulling the wrong stuff. In terms of like the length of this, I'm always going to say your solution needs to be the longest on the page, period. I think the whole thing about, oh, a bias, it's if you don't think you have a good product, I think that's bigger than what we're talking about here. Like now we got to go back to the drawing board. And also, we can't assume people are dumb either, right? If they land on the website and it says Teal on the website, obviously this is the Teal website. If my piece is the longest, that would actually make more sense than somebody else's solution being longer than mine.
For sure.
So it's in terms of the bias thing, I say if you have a genuinely good product that helps people and does what it's supposed to do, to me, that's more of an afterthought. I don't even really think about that. But in terms of like other people, including them in your article, other solutions, I always say you don't want to shit talk your competitors. And the reason for that is specifically, I'm finding it across multiple LLMs, specifically with perplexity searches. If you go to Perplexity and type in, actually, let me give you an example here. I'll show you. So if I go to Perplexity, mhm, and this is another one of my clients, a conveyor that I had before, and the keyword here was Lupio alternatives. And I went to Perplexity and I typed in, I've been using Lupio for questionnaire automation, but I'm not happy with it. Can you recommend me an alternative? Notice how the search did not say Lupio alternative, because that's more of how somebody would search it in Google versus how somebody would search it in AI search. So I did the search here and then Conveyor appeared first for that. But notice what about the sources that it pulled from. Notice how most of these sources are bottom of funnel. So it's one thing I noticed as well. That's one thing. It's pulling. So when people are in AI search looking for this high intent stuff, not only is it pulling from bottom of funnel articles to be able to produce something, but on the flip side, I want to show you a screenshot here too. Here. So going back to Teal, they showed up first for a result. And then their blurb about them was actually pulled from a competitor. And if you look here, they had them listed out the best rating of all time. They gave Teal a 2 out of 5, out of a 5 out of 5. But notice how also Resi has them number one, 5 out of 5. Like it makes sense. But they have us here. And then on the Resi website, there's a blurb about Teal there. So That's why I say you want to tread lightly with how you treat your
Yeah.
competitors, because AI could be using them to surface and source information about you. So it's just something I say tread lightly with. But in terms of adding competitors, yeah, for sure. I don't go over 5 because it gives the reader enough to be like, okay, they did a little due diligence for me, but also not enough to be like, damn, this is a lot of tools. I don't know. Maybe I should just like, go down the rabbit hole with these 3 and then figure it out.
Yeah, that is a great point. I think 5 is probably a good proxy. Who wants more anyway? But one thing that we're getting into now is identifying what, first it was keywords, now prompts, but what you're creating content around, and like in terms of the specific prompt queries or keywords that you're targeting. How are you identifying what those are in the tools that you're using, or the transcripts that you're pulling in? Can you walk me through that process?
That's a great question. So I've been digging into this really as of the past week and really getting deep with it. I'm wondering if I could pull up something with Cowork to show this, but it's a couple different things. So what I like to do is let me do this. Let me pull up Drive and then see if I can show you my thought process behind this. Unfortunately, I don't know where this visual is that I had Cowork build for me, that showed the brief and how things are connected together. But you know what? Maybe I can show you the brief in Notion too. I'll do that after this. As I'm going through a middle of funnel refresh, how I think about things. So there's a ton of different stuff in here that I won't dive into too much. I'm going to focus on the target AI query. So I take the article topic and I map it to a persona, mainly because again, AI search is becoming less keyword based and more persona based. Why is it more persona based? Because depending on the persona is going to determine what they type in and how they type it and how they phrase it. So what I like to do is I will create these sort of internal artifacts, right? So the founder story and the context on the company and the customer language and all this stuff. That customer language one though is where the gold is at. So those are just like sales call transcripts with the verbiage pulled out of them. And what I like to do is I like to prompt AI to phrase that language for me in as if it was an AI search query. Like, how do we do that? So I'll have it here. And immediately what I'm thinking is like, we need to maybe not include this phrase exactly in the content because AI, again, is smart enough to pick up on semantic search and context and things like that. So we don't have to put it in here verbatim, but it needs to answer this question. And again, this question came from a sales call transcript. And once AI has that language, I'm able to say, okay, turn this into what would be an AI query for me. That's step 1. Step 2 is something I've been dabbling with a little bit too, is more of here's the target query. Mind you, and this is why I'm weary of tools that claim they can do prompt searches because I'm like, how? If prompts are like this, if queries are like this, the odds of more than one person ever typing that in is like slim to impossible. So if there's not more than one person typing it in, how are you going to track that? It's not like a, again, best resume builder keyword. 50 people a month could type that in. Ahrefs picks that up easily. It's the same 3 or 4 phrases. But it's like when it's long like this, how? Like how is that even possible? So I don't look at it like prompt and search volume. I look at it like topic and like how can I increase my surface area for this target query? So number 1, I get the core target query. Number 2, I find synonyms around that query. I think mainly, and again, mainly how I do this is just like once I have the verbiage from the sales calls, then I could prompt AI to say, okay, turn this into a target query for me. Okay, now let's do synonyms of that query, like 5 or 6 of them. So we have that. Another thing I've been dabbling with too is like the before and after. So it's like,
Yep.
how do we, and this gets a little bit more into the predictive nature. We can't really predict what somebody will search, but how can I capture what somebody would search before they get to this query if they're just having a conversation with AI? And how can I predict or calculate what they would search after this query? Because again, I'm trying to cover the target query and I'm trying to expand around that by capturing synonyms. Then I'm trying to go up and capture that. Then I'm trying to go down and capture that. So I'm trying to just expand as much surface area as I can. So when anybody types in anything related to this topic, I can show up for it. It doesn't have to be a specific keyword or anything like that. It's more topic based. And I'm finding like that's how AI search is starting to run. Again, how do you track prompt volume if prompts are going to become one of one? How do you do that? And that's why I'm like skeptical. Oh, we track prompt volume and things like that. I never really pay attention to that. I'm more like, let me extract the information off my sales calls. Let me turn this into an AI query. Let me find synonyms around that query, bake it into the content. Let me also find potentially what they would search before and what they would search after and put it in the content. There, I can expand my surface area in terms of, okay, can how many queries can I show up for this topic rather than can I show up for this exact query? Because you don't know what they're going to type in. You just don't know. So now I'm finding that become more topically based than keyword based. Hopefully that makes sense. I know it's a lot.
That totally does. And I think it's brilliant too to use an LLM to regurgitate what a long form natural language prompt is, because ultimately that's what becomes like the query fan out, right? And so I see that's what you have there for the target search term.
Yes.
That's so smart. Lashay, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your process, your approach. I love it, and your story too, going from the consultant maybe didn't work out in the way that you wanted initially, but you are building an amazing product, education, consulting service. So best place to find you online?
LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. Chronically
LinkedIn.
on LinkedIn. Unfortunately, I run my whole business there, but also Substack. I'm going to be coming out with a lot of deep dives and things like that, and just what I'm building as I'm building it.
Yep.
So for sure, yeah, LinkedIn and Substack. Yes,
And that is building from the bottom.
yes, built from the bottom.
Built
Yep,
from the bottom. Amazing.
yep.
Lashay Lewis, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.